She is the SVP of Marketing and Creative at Viceland. We have Meghan Kirsch joins us, an Emmy Award-winning marketing exec and creative director, passionate, inspiring leader, according to your LinkedIn, who nurtures and motivates large teams to kick ass on a daily basis and encourage creative risk-taking. Meghan, thanks so much for hopping on the show.
Of course. Happy to be here.
So tell me a little bit. I think Viceland, your guys' trajectory from when it first started to where it is today, I know that's kind of a long story, but in a short format, it'd be cool to kind of hear how you explain that
From
rise.
when it first launched.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I started at Viceland 6 months after it launched, and when the channel first launched, Spike Jonze was very heavily involved, and the programming was a lot of travel the world and experience culture through the lens of food or weed or fashion. And it was really, really compelling programming. But that was like pretty much the main core of what was on. Mm-hmm. And since then we've evolved. We wanted to get more into the comedy space. So the show Jesus and Mero we introduced, which was a late night talk show, two guys from the Bronx that had a podcast before. And it's the youngest, most diverse show in late night. So it definitely offers like a different take on things. And we also, some reality set into with just programming budgets and just being smarter about the way that we're approaching the brand. So those shows were expensive, those travel shows. And we also realized, too, for American audiences, they like things in America. So we kind of had that insight also from A&E days. Like we had this show called Hate Thy Neighbor, hosted by a comedian where he goes around the world and talks to different hate groups and tries to understand like what motivates them and where all this kind of racism.
Bill Maher kind of did that back in the day with Religulous, his documentary, like trying to figure out the different religions. So Totally.
And so what we noticed is when Jamali was in America, the American episodes did really well. And then when he was going around to other places in the world, they didn't rate as well. So I think it just all comes back to, Americans are kind of like America first, right? So we pivoted that show to really focus on issues happening in the States. And then now we're just looking ahead. We've got some really exciting things coming up.
You guys have a ton of season ones, too. I looked at your website recently, and it seems like you have a lot of originals that are, I guess, in the, not incubator anymore, but kind of coming out. Have you guys launched a lot of originals the last year or so?
Yeah, I mean, we have about 300 hours of original programs, so it's a lot. And what's great is because Vice started as a magazine and then transitioned into a suite of digital channels. There's a lot of short form series that were incubated online that we were able to see. Okay, like a show like Slut Ever, for example, which sounds like more kind of racy and like lowbrow than it is. It's about a woman named Carly Sorrentino, and she's a sexpert. So she kind of goes around and looks at just different issues and themes around sex today and trying to like break down the stigmas of being weird about talking about it. And this was a short form series online that we then developed into a longer format half-hour show, and it's done really well on television for us.
I feel like you guys, you saw a niche or an opportunity where the PC cops, whatever you want to call it, for so many years just refused to touch certain subjects and wouldn't go in certain areas, and you guys were just like, let's do it, and people actually came to it and said, this is what I want to see. Much like maybe Barstool Sports is doing for sports talk right now.
Totally. I always felt, and I've been in television for a long time, but there were things that you would hear in development meetings where people would say, well, that just won't work on television. That won't work. Like, especially things like weed and sex are two prime examples. That on Viceland, because we are challenging the way that everybody is approaching television and content, and we're for a television viewer that isn't like a heavy viewer that's watching, 20 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Every couple of days. We're there for like a lighter viewer that they might be watching like, a show on Netflix or something on HBO, but they want content that's different. They're for people that want something different on TV and are kind of bored of the same contrived stories and themes.
You look back at history, I Love Lucy, they had separate beds because God forbid you can watch a marriage couple, sharing a bedroom type deal. So I feel like these stigmas or these PC cops, whatever you want to call it, and then someone kind of crosses the line and everybody's like cool with it, and then it kind of changes the game a little bit.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I think what's exciting for people on Viceland, look, some people are totally offended by the stuff that we do, and it's not for everybody. We're not trying to be for everybody, but we do have a really core rabid fan base, and they really are evangelical about the brand. So those who love it really love it, and they love to talk about it and tell their friends about it.
Well, you talk about starting the digital magazine, then going digital, and then actually having a linear television network as well with the A&E merger and everything like that. I think it's interesting because I feel like, especially we're here at Pro Max and there's a lot of linear television networks in the house, they're trying to kind of do what Viceland did backwards in a way. They started as a linear network and they're trying to experiment in digital. So what would be your recommendation to, I guess, these older networks that are now trying to shift based on the audience?
I mean, I think, look, at the end of the day, content is still going to prevail, like regardless of where you're going to consume it. For Vice, like our audience on digital is different than the Viceland viewer. And what's interesting for Viceland is our awareness in 2 years is pretty much right up there with Vice, which is a 25-year-old brand, because we're now nationally distributed and we're reaching people in the middle of the country.
Yep.
So I think, again, like the content is always going to be the most important thing. So just figuring out what the appropriate format is, or the length of that format is for the medium and digital. You know, sometimes people are looking for things that are a little smaller, shorter in length. But with Vice, it's great because we can tap into the whole ecosystem. And when we're marketing, we can make sure that Vice.com has something going on, that we're finding ways to extend it or interpret it in the right way for Viceland and like vice versa.
I think the networks are having somewhat of an issue because the majority of their ad revenue is coming from these 30-second spots on linear. So to totally pivot and ask their ad sales team or what have you to sell a bunch of branded social content, it's a little bit of a foreign language for them. How have you guys, I mean, starting in digital, obviously you kind of had to figure that out in order to monetize your content, but what is the percentage, or what's the balance right now between all your different platforms? I
mean, still the majority of the revenue is going to come from branded content. The things are done through Vice.com for sure. And since Viceland is new, we're still not even 2 years old. But we've done a lot of really interested branded projects. For example, we did something with GE called Drone Week. So GE has had Drone Week before. They did it with Facebook in the past. And then this year they did it 100% with us. So we had like a week of, we have a lot of programming drone shots in it. So we kind of repackaged and curated a bunch of our shows that have drone shots. And we made a ton of, I have run a short form team called Labs that makes all of our interstitials. And we make, like 20 minutes of custom content a month. So we made all this drone themed content and had a lot of fun with it. We did like a panel show. We did their whole ad campaign. So really trying to find like unique ways of approaching it. And another example is a show we have called Beerland that is funded by Golden Road. So it was a full show starring this woman, Meg Gill, who started Golden Road. And she did a full show with us, and it's sponsor funded, but it's still entertaining at the same time, and people are loving it for the entertaining content it has.
I own STN. It's a social media marketing company, and we started off selling blogs 5 years ago, and now just we're doing Facebook live streams with 6 cameras and broadcast satellite trucks. It's crazy how fast the industry has changed, but I'm interested in right now, branded content is actually, people are starting to understand, like you mentioned, Drone Week. Don't just slap a logo on a piece of content that's not genuine to the sponsor and doesn't make sense type deal.
Exactly. I think that's the best way. And that's what Vice does really well. And that's why in the branded space, like the digital business has always done really well there, because it's like, hey, you guys have a really unique approach to storytelling. You're reaching the coveted
demo we want.
And how can we do something together that's going to cut through, but it's not going to feel so like over, here's my brand right here in your face.
Talk about social a lot. Obviously, Facebook constantly changing their algorithm. How do you diversify, I guess, your audience, making sure, I know you have Viceland, but Facebook obviously is that white billboard that you have to play in that sandbox, but it is frustrating sometimes when they turn down those organic reaches. So how do you kind of diversify, making sure you don't put too much in one basket?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously Facebook, like you said, has the scale, so we're going to be there, but we're the fastest growing network on Facebook and Instagram. But Instagram to me is really the biggest opportunity platform, because
I think it's gone from 80 million to 800 million active users in 5 years.
It's personally, it's the only one that I can really stomach these days.
Me too.
But just on Viceland or Instagram, it's just that people are so engaged with it. So we're like,
how many channels do you guys have now? Like subset channels on Instagram alone? I mean, it has to be.
On Instagram, we have the Viceland main channel. We have the Viceland bus. It has its own Instagram account. So that's like this party bus that we take to all events all over the country. And it's already has like 50,000 organic followers, which is awesome. Jesus Amaro has its own Instagram. And that's it. We mostly, because we're very brand first at the end of the day, we're really about aligning with the right mindset of a viewer who's a Viceland viewer, who's a Viceland kind of sensibility. So we're really, we're pushing our shows always, but we also are just putting out content that we think is going to be interesting to our viewers, because for me, the most important thing is, yes, you put your marketing hat on and how I'm going to speak to them and how I want to make sure I'm going to recruit people and hopefully drive back to linear. But what I really want to always have my team think about is think about it from the perspective of the consumer. Like, people aren't really excited to see what brands they're following on social have to say. So for us, we want them to actually be like, wow, what is this cool thing that Viceland's doing right now? And and the bus is one way that we're going to events, we're doing stories, people are seeing the crazy stuff that we're up to, and just really making sure the content we're putting out is always actually adding to their day.
I'm always interested on that when it comes to like the mothership account, like at Vice or what have you. You guys have so many different shows, so many different initiatives you're running, and maybe someone likes the weed show but doesn't like the comedy show, and there's a bunch of different, I guess, subset demos inside your overall demographic. So how do you counterbalance that? Because I think a lot of brands have a tough time with that, especially networks that have that comedy show. Like FX, for instance, is a perfect example. You have It's Always Sunny in the League, and then you have these dramas, and then you have these thrillers. Not necessarily the same exact audience for those.
Yeah, I mean, I think FX still seems, and they're so well defined as far as their aesthetic and their style, and I really love their approach to creative and marketing, but I still think you're just coming for shows for that channel. It's always a brand versus show. Like Viceland, Deezus and Mero really has its own audience that's built in, and that's why they have all their separate channels. But for the rest of Viceland, there is crossover between like Fuck That's Delicious or Slut Ever, or is a similar type of person. So we really are about nurturing that brand, because that's the most important thing we can do to cut through. We don't have like the crazy resources. We're only 2 years on the scene. We don't have the distribution that some of these other networks have. So all we can do is have a really authentic voice, connect with our viewers in a way that they're not connecting with other brands, where we're very transparent. We talk to them very directly and tell them like how the sausage is made, and if we fuck something up, and we say we fucked something up, and we tell them that like literally, and
people appreciate that, the generosity, right?
They feel that it's really like human, like we can feel that there's human like imperfections behind this, and I think that makes it more of a genuine experience.
I think people they bring up Vice a lot, especially in circles that I'm at, as far as someone that's kind of going towards a millennial and doing it the right way. So what do you think in our space, in the industry overall, brands should be doing more of that just like maybe just drives you crazy? Like, how are you not taking this seriously type deal, if something comes to mind?
What they should be doing more of?
Yes.
I mean, I think in general, the approach we're taking with the audience is the right way, which is not to be overly bullshitting people all the time with gimmicky marketing messages.
And not selling.
Yeah, not being so overt, because everybody knows, like, everybody's a marketer now. Everyone's a creator. There's 23-year-olds we work with that are making spots and shows and like just going out and creating things, and it's amazing. But they're really hip to that kind of stuff. Like, there's a very real resistance to overt advertising. And it even happened when I started at Vice. People didn't want to put the channel number on any of the creative I was putting together, because they're like, it's such overt advertising.
And I think
I'm
30-second ads, too, people are just like, I guess the new generation just does not into it anymore. It's over.
Well, they're not. It's hard because they're not watching as much like linear television or time shifting. So you have to make something really compelling that's going to cut through. But it's like the push and pull. I had to also say, no, we have to put the channel number on, guys, because people don't even know that this exists.
We have a channel, so.
So it's just, but we can be in places that we can buy a radio spot. Like, I think there was a feeling, we can never be on radio. I'm like, we can. It's just, how are we going to approach the creative of what we're saying? Like, that needs to feel really fresh and feel really different and make somebody kind of stop in their tracks.
So with your marketing team, how many people are on your team, and how do you kind of, I guess, separate out the different logistics and responsibilities on that team?
So there's about 50 of us total, but that spans a lot. So that's social media team, media strategy, partnerships, promotions team, on-air scheduling for the promos, and then there's the creative team, which is the biggest pool, and that's from creative directors to editors, producers. We have a live action team called Labs that does all of our short form, designers. We do everything in-house, so we don't go work with any agencies.
Interesting.
So that's like a blessing and a curse. It's great because we have such a distinct voice. It's hard for other people to really crack it, but it puts a lot of pressure on us because we want everything that we do to be amazing and really stand out and cut through. So, but we have more ownership that way. So it's a lot, but we produce so much content. It's amazing. There's also, it's a startup-y vibe, so there's not a lot of layers. So I have my direct reports, and then they have their teams under them, and they can just make things, and I'll say, just go do it, put it on air, and that's it. I'm like the last stop on the train. I'll show some stuff to the president of the network, but he's got a lot on his plate.
Yeah, I bet.
So having the ownership and the creative freedom allows for us to be really nimble and pump out a lot of stuff. Whereas other places, I think there's a lot of layers and layers, and a lot of people overthinking every single creative decision, and it can be a little
move weekly
stifling.
And not wait quarterly to be able to make moves. So obviously budget's always a concern, but if you had double your budget right now, like what would be the number one thing you would do in terms of that new department, or maybe double up in certain areas?
I would just put more into the media budget, I think, because I think creative, or we can also do more on the creative side. And maybe partner with other filmmakers and other artists to create different, like, more elevated work. But definitely in the media, I think we just need. We're making so much great stuff that people aren't seeing.
Yeah,
because I don't have
on the cutting room
enough
floor type deal.
money to like place it. So I have such small budgets, but we do a lot with small budgets. But I would definitely just love to get the things out there wider in a bigger way.
See, I mean, HQ Trivia has kind of changed the game and kind of brought in that appointment view television back to mobile, which is interesting. I remember growing up Thursday, I always say it on this program, but must-see TV on NBC with like Friends and Seinfeld and all that. And you kind of had to be there in order to participate in the water cooler talk the next morning. And I think HQ Trivia has found a way to bring that back into this new generation. So are you looking at things like that as well at Vice and trying to find ways that you need to be here at a certain time and interact and gamify it and things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people at Vice wish that we came up with HQ or some version
of
that. I think everybody does. I think we all are thinking about, obviously it's so much easier said than done, but how do you completely disrupt a format? Or at Viceland especially, what's interesting is we'll try to take formats that are familiar and really turn them on their heads. So like a show called Bon Appetit that we had was a cooking show. It's a cooking show. It was all cannabis. So
which has been done forever, but
the fact that it had cannabis in it was all of a sudden like, wow, like this is something really interesting that people haven't done before. So I think that's something too. We really like taking old school mediums and trying to like reintroduce them in a much fresher, unexpected way.
What's your, I'm interested to hear kind of what your main KPIs are, because obviously with the linear channel and all the social feeds and all the digital platforms you guys have, what's the couple things that you're always looked at for ultimate success?
I mean, for me, again, I work on Viceland. I don't work for all of Vice, but obviously the comm score on Vice is important in the traffic. But on Viceland, it's still ratings. That's the hardest part of my job, is that we have such cultural relevance, like our socials are huge. We're winning all of these awards. We're up for Marketing Team of the Year tonight. I'm like, we're got so much industry cred, and consumers are so evangelical about the brand. Like I walk through an airport with a Viceland hoodie, and people are coming up to me, I want that. So we're getting into the merch space. I'm like, we got to get into merch. I'm still beholden to trying to drive linear ratings, but at the same time, I'm trying to make a brand that's a cultural passion brand for people and beyond just like a provider of content. And we do that in a lot of different ways, but it's,
do you wish in a way that like linear wasn't a part of it and you can just focus all in on cultural relevance and merch and brand awareness?
If we could be direct to consumer, it would be so much easier. It's a lot. It's hard. Programming a channel 24/7, it's just, I think we all see like it's shifting. It's not shifting yet. It's not dead yet, but we're like in this weird place where if it was 8 years ago, I think we would be killing it. And we are. We're up like 25% year over year. Like we're growing. It's just a tough business to be in. Everybody's feeling it.
So what does that look like? I've talked to a lot of networks, and it's like you have YouTube TV and you have Hulu and you have your linear network and you have your app, and like there's a lot of conflicting CTAs to your audience of like where to go because you're making money from different areas. But you talk about like direct to consumer, like what does that look like potentially 3 to 5 years down the road if that were to end up happening?
I think if it were to end up happening, it would probably be like all things Vice, like right to consumer for some fee a month. But for now,
subscriber model.
Gotcha. But you'd probably be exposed to the other parts of Vice. But for now, we put every premiere episode of our show on YouTube for free, just because we want people to sample it and talk about it. Like Jesus and Mara goes up for free the next day, so and it's not really cannibalizing our linear audience. It's two different audiences, but for us, we're still of the mindset that the more people can experience our content and know we're out there, then the more we're still trying to build brand awareness. So that's still an important goal of mine, is to make sure everyone knows we exist.
I actually will admit to you that I wanted to check out Jersey Shore, the new family vacation or whatever they call it, just because like there's a little bit of nostalgia for me, and I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I have cable, but I wanted to find it on YouTube. I wanted to find MTV.com. They just won't share it.
Yeah, their Viacoms get pretty good about like just making sure they pull all that stuff down.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
do the old school
Which is
way.
kind of, I don't know, counterintuitive, I think, to people that want to experience the brand.
Yeah, well, especially for Vice, which was always free. So the content was always free. So, and we give a lot of we'll do shorter versions that we'll give to Vice.com. So you still have to have a cable login to really watch like the full season of something, but we're pretty good about. We'll unlock a season 1 right before season 2 premieres just to get more people exposed to it.
I love it.
It's just hard to measure all that.
I know.
It's like it's the aggregate of all these different places that people are consuming.
Well, I talk about on the sports side. I talk about the NBA a lot. Adam Silver, their commissioner, they always talk about everybody can share anything. Like every fan, if you want to rip our highlights and post it, they embody like. Just get it out there, and we're going to have global reach, and hopefully we put snacks out there, and you'll check out our meals once in a while type deal, which has worked well for them. But I think that's probably the way to do it. On the social media front, what would you think is kind of the undervalued attention that maybe marketers or brands aren't paying enough attention to that you've seen a lot of growth or a lot of success at?
I think again, like Instagram, just to me is just the place to put your money into,
and people aren't
and
playing
on stories. Snapchat. It's like, all right, I don't even bother with that. Like we have a Discover feature in Snapchat, and that's great. And apparently, 80% of Snapchat users have cable subscriptions, which I don't believe. But I just think like Instagram seems to me like the place where people are actually enjoying and engaging.
Yeah.
And when I think of Facebook, my personal feeling on Facebook is it's just brought out the worst in people, and they spend a lot of time, including like my own family members, trolling each other for like hours, and it's just like you're not going anywhere. You're echo chambering, and like go in person and say these things you wouldn't like. So to me, I feel like that's the place where Instagram is a place where
I feel like Facebook's in
an
an interesting spot. Obviously, Cambridge Analytica, but to your point, I feel the same way. I feel like high school acquaintance, friend, cousin, add, friend, cousin, add, and it's just not really. I used to use it as my RSS feed. I used to really enjoy it, but it's kind of turned into a little bit.
It's just with Trump. I think it's just really divided everybody, and their goal is to win an argument and not to actually listen to what the other person is saying, and they'll at all costs keep going and waste time too. I'm like, this is just a waste of my time, so I can't do it. And then Twitter, Twitter, like Jesus and Mero, they became famous on Twitter, so it's like an important platform for us to be in there, and it's good for real-time television.
There's no other really competitor in that type. I think I don't know about you, but I think Twitter, but also there seems like to be an opening in our industry for a new social media platform, because Instagram's killing it, Facebook is kind of fading, Twitter's always been there. Musically was there for a second, but then kind of went away. But there's an opening there.
I think there is, and it's interesting to see, because luckily the younger generation, like young kids now, are not going on Facebook. Like that is not part of their diet.
I say Facebook is the white pages. Like you have to prove that you're a human by having a Facebook page, but younger people aren't interacting on it as much.
When my grandma gets on, and which she does,
it kind of ruins it.
And like post Breitbart stuff. I'm like, okay, well now it's this. Yeah, who is this for? I don't know.
Man. Is there a tool or app that you or your team uses that you couldn't live without that kind of helps you guys do your day to day?
Tool or an app? We use this a tool called Canvas. That's like our social listening tool. Everything else, like as far as like data and research, it really is to just help identify. And our media agency has a lot of tools that they use to be able to put together our targets and kind of identify the best opportunity.
And you use
segments.
that to make moves or be able to shift and evolve.
when we're doing our media plans, we really like use those tools to help figure out who the people are and the best way of reaching them.
How have you seen just in 2 years, how have you seen the change in interest from sponsors and partners wanting to be involved in branded content, specifically on digital? Because I know for me, I've seen some major change there, and people obviously want those rate cards and want to know opportunities, but a lot of people don't have the tangible asset. Have you seen a lot more of the Fortune 5s, or at least sponsors overall, wanting to be more involved on digital?
Yeah, and for Vice.com,
it's always been that way.
They've been like one of leaders in just really doing really interesting branded content. So I think that's always been a healthy business for them. But on Viceland, we're definitely seeing more, because we have I'm personally leading a team that's working on a lot of these solutions, because we have such a nimble, talented, creative team, and we have our own production camera crew, so we can go out and make stuff really easily. So we've been doing a lot in that space of really kind of some things are really simple but really effective ways of getting a brand in there without even realizing you're watching.
I think
a commercial.
I think complex, or I forget what, funny or it's Funny or Die potentially, but the Hot Ones episode with like Kevin Hart, where they try the different hot sauces and it's presented by Hot Ones. But to your point, you're kind of laughing. You don't really realize it's like a sponsored brand and content, which is always good. Well, if we sit back here next year and have another discussion 12 months from today, what do you think? I know there's a lot of mergers going on right now, a lot of conglomerates kind of merging, but what do you think the main thing that we're going to be talking about, or the big trend that we're all going to be trying to stay ahead on?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely one thing, is the consolidations and the mergers, and seeing, I think some networks will fold, or some will just join forces and be able to benefit from having other networks in their family that they can use, their airtime to help promote.
Right.
And like there's a lot of even happening with Discovery and Scripps right now. It'll be interesting to see. It's full on redundancies of jobs everywhere, so it's a little scary. It's like who's better in each role, and then kind of making those decisions. But I think there will just be more and more of consolidation, 100%. So
there it is.
Crazy times. Or some places going direct to consumer, maybe we'll see, and just finding ways of really introducing those businesses where, you can that's the trend, that's where everyone's going. And I think it'll just be interesting to see if you abandon the whole cable operator fee situation, which is a very healthy, reliable part of everybody's business.
Well, I thought I was going to be able to save money on my cable bill. You pay whatever, it used to be $80 or $90. Netflix is only $8, Hulu's only $12. Cool, but now if you have HBO Go and you have all these different paid models, you're gonna be spending $90
it's
anyway.
Adding up, and what they'll do is, until Google controls the internet, or it's just gonna be fine. Don't get cable. It's like the phone. The phone is $5 extra. Might as well get it. Oh, you don't want cable? It's only $5 extra. Your internet's $120.
Yeah, that's true. That's the thing. When they control both, they'll just
neutrality and all that.
You're
I mean, they're gonna.
Net neutrality's a big deal.
That's a big deal. They're going to find a way to squeeze you, I think, no matter what.
They'll get your money from you for sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you so much. It's been an awesome conversation. I appreciate you sitting down with us. And Meghan Kirsch from Viceland. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.